that's going to change the value that testing adds. And in the V model type of world or waterfall model type of world, which really isn't V model, it's just the way the waterfall typically worked. There tended to be this accumulation of defects over a long period of time, and then an attempt to scrub those defects out via levels of testing like unit test, integration test, system test, and so forth, which is kind of a weakness. Now it's true that the V model, properly applied, would actually not have that behavior, because you'd be instituting defect removal activities throughout the life cycle, and the final stages of testing really would be about confidence building almost entirely. But in Agile, I think what we're starting to see is companies that are doing Agile right are actually getting very high levels of upfront defect removal in unit testing, and then the later testing does become more a matter of acceptance. Now, it takes a while to get to that level of maturity, and it certainly doesn't happen easily, but certainly we are starting to see that with clients that have done a good job of integrating testing into their Agile life cycles throughout the entire sprint, and then it is more of a confidence building activity, more of an insurance activity, and we'll have to, as this continues and Agile does start to show more benefits, and maybe if people got serious about doing the V model again and actually did it properly, that you would see a shift into more of a confidence building role for testing, and that would then change the paradigm here. It would not be exactly the same as what I've shown. Let's see, got a question from Roy. Do you know the exact name or location in your web of the file shown? Just discussed that, but let me just go back here and just put that slide up again just for a moment. So you go to the basic library. That's on the resources page. You go to the home page at rbcs-us.com, go to the resources page, and then basic library, and you should find this file, testing ROI, what IT managers should know. If you don't, if you can't find it, certainly do let me know, and we will we'll get that up there. Roy says thanks, and you're quite welcome, Roy. Now I got a question here from Mark. Mark, good to hear from you again. Would you really bring in automation before reviews and walkthroughs? Well, should you or do you typically? I think that's the interesting distinction here. Certainly, it's been pretty well established over years and years that reviews have one of the highest returns on investment of any sort of quality assurance activity, because the cost of detecting a defect and removing it is so low during a review. And notice that reviews happen in an Agile world too. That is, they happen in real time, because the whole team is there going through, they should be going through things like user stories and acceptance criteria and those sort of things. So these are really well-established, proven techniques, and yeah, obviously it should be something that happens right away. I think the reality is that software test professionals are no different than other software engineering professionals, that we tend to really like to geek out. And it's just, there's just nothing particularly geeky about sitting around in a room with people discussing defects in documents. And there is something really geeky about building flashy automated test systems and creating a whole bunch of automated tests for it. So I think as a practical matter, yeah, I think what really does happen is that people do tend to start with automation, and of course, yeah, that's completely backwards. I mean, what you should be doing if you're trying to do business value driven testing, and I suggest we all should, is look at what the return on investment is for given process improvements that we could make, and make those process improvements in that order. But I don't think that we we are particularly good at that, partly because we don't often understand the business value. But so certainly, yeah, I mean, anytime you're looking at process improvements, that you should think about relative business value. We do this when we do assessments for clients, so we give them a prioritized list of recommendations, and that prioritized list of recommendations is pretty much always driven by where we think they're going to get the most business value from. And business value, notice, can be money saved, but it'll also be in terms of risk mitigation, so you do have to look at that as well. Question here from Jerry Everett. My buddy Jerry, right up the street. How are you holding on up there, Jerry? I guess you haven't blown away up in Canyon Lake yet. We're just about blowing away down here in Bull Verde. Jerry asks, please briefly describe the parameters considered and their respective importance when classifying a bug as must-fix versus non-must-fix. Oh, boy, that is a great question. What we did on the case study project that I think was about as close to best practices as I've ever seen practiced was we had a cross-functional team that would look at the relative costs, risks, opportunities, and benefits associated with fixing a bug versus not fixing a bug, and that spanned all four or five groups that were represented in there. Tech support, test, development, project management, and the sales and marketing guys and the executives, all looking at these things, because that really is, you want to say, okay, well, what do we get out of this? What's the benefit? Does it create some additional possible opportunities that might arise versus, okay, what's it going to cost, effort-wise, potentially other resource-wise, and what are the risks? I mean, this is code we don't want to be playing with at this point in the project. It might actually be more dangerous to get in there than to leave it alone. So I mean, I think that's really the right way to think about it. Cross-functional triage team, this looking, not just simplistically at the cost and the benefits, but also including risks and opportunities in there, in that consideration. I mean, I think all too often what actually happens is the decision is made based purely on the development resource that's going to be required. And, project manager says to developer, how long do you think it'll take you to fix that bug? The developer says, I can fix that in an hour. Okay, go ahead and do it. And meanwhile, the test manager's going, oh my God, you do that, that invalidates, 20 person hours of testing have to be rerun and aren't automated. Maybe the configuration management team looks at that and says, are you kidding? Are you going to touch that module? Do you know how modules connected to everything else in the entire universe? What's going to happen when you do that? So I think we often are not anywhere near as comprehensive in our perspective on this question as we really ought to be. So I am glad you brought that up, Jerry. And to tie that back to business value, as I was saying before, when we don't fix bugs that we ought to fix, then what happens is we're basically we're going to incur a cost of external failure, because when you got a must-fix bug that comes up in the field, that it must be fixed, right? I mean, that doesn't